Hi, I am Jeff with Sweetstone Cakes, and today we are going to make a spectacular erupting volcano cake. Yes, this cake is going to blow the minds of everybody at the party that you bring it to, and it doesn't take a lot of skill to make. It just takes basic cake making abilities, and this thing is lava is going to erupt out of it and run down the sides. It's going to have smoke coming out of it. Amazing, very spectacular. And again, you don't need a whole lot of skills in order to make this. The first thing you're going to need to do is make cakes. You're going to need to make several cakes. Now, a lot of people are intimidated when it comes to making cake. Making a cake from scratch, it's very complicated, and it's easy for that cake to not turn out. So, but people are a little hesitant to use a box mix because they feel like they're cheating. Well, I have a solution for that. So, here's a basic regular cake mix. And it calls for 1 cup of water, 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, and 3 eggs. Now, we're going to use the 3 eggs, but instead of 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, you're going to put in 1/3 cup of melted butter, okay? Instead of 1 cup of water, you're going to use 1 cup of buttermilk. We're also going to add about 1/3 cup of sour cream. In this one, because it's chocolate, I'm going to add a couple of heaping tablespoons of cocoa. And we're also going to add a box of instant pudding. And the flavor of the pudding should be similar to the flavor of the cake you're making. So chocolate and chocolate, vanilla, and so on. What you're going to get from that is you're going to get a thicker, fudgier cake. It's going to be firmer. The taste is deeper. It just tastes like a really good professional cake, like what you're used to getting from the store. One that for some reason the cake you make at home just doesn't quite taste the same. That's why. Okay, you're also going to need a cake board. This is a cake board. I got this one at the local cake store, Cake Creations. Hi, ladies. Great store, Canoga Park, California. Cake board, it's just a basic board to put your cake on. You do need to have something on here so that that's waterproof. Otherwise, the moisture from the cake will go through. I've tried once wrapping a cake board with wrapping paper. Not good, because then it got all soggy, and when I cut the cake, I was serving pieces of paper. Wasn't good. So this is a regular cake board, and this is just a basic water bottle. You're going to want a tall, thin water bottle. Something as tall as you can get. I'm going to cut the top of it off, and this is hot glued to the cake board. You will notice that the water bottle is off center on the cake board, and there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is better explained by giving you a different story, and that is the story of the 9-inch cake pan. This is a 9-inch cake pan. This is the basic cake pan that everybody has. You probably have one of these, your grandmother had one of these, your mother had one of these, your dad, who knows? Everybody has this cake pan. So when you make a cake this size and you show up at a party, people are used to seeing this size cake, and in the back of their minds, subconsciously, they see this as a homemade cake. No matter how spectacular and great your cake is, it's always going to kind of look like a homemade cake because it's the size they expect. If you use a cake pan that is just a little bit bigger or just a little bit smaller, in their minds, suddenly that's not a homemade cake anymore. Now this is something different. This is something special. This is a shape they're not used to seeing. And that is the same concept as this. Your first thought is going to be to glue this right to the center of the cake board. And that's what everybody is expecting. So you gotta throw them off a little bit. And we attached it just slightly off center. And after we're done, you will see that in your mind, subconsciously, it doesn't feel like a normal cake. It feels like something extra special. Now, after you have your cake board and your water bottle and you're all glued on and you're ready to go, the next thing you need to do is stack your cakes. You're going to need several different cakes for this one. I have one this size, which is, what is that, 12-inch? That's a 12-inch. I did actually end up using some of the 9-inch, but they'll be disguised. This is a 10-inch, I believe, and then a little one. So you're going to need different sizes because, of course, we're making the shape of a volcano. Now, through a process that I like to call Kiki Magic, we're going to bring the cakes in. We have cake. Here are the cakes that we're using. Again, here's the 12-inch, there's the 10-inch, the 2 9-inch, and then this little guy. Okay? And the process of stacking is exactly what you think it is. It's very simple. Here is our largest cake. We are going to want to cut a hole slightly off center. Again, we want it slightly off center because that throws off your brain. This is a biscuit cutter. And I'm just going to do this and cut a hole in it. And this goes to our cameraman Shane after we're done. The place smells great. It smells like chocolate cake all through here, so it's great. Okay, so here's our cake, and we stack it. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be great. We're going to cover this all up with stuff later anyway. So there we go. So you've stacked your cake, and now, of course, we need a little chocolate buttercream. So we're going to put some chocolate buttercream in here just to make it delicious. You don't have to go all the way out to the edges because we're going to trim a lot of that edge off once we get these stacked. Now we're going to carve the cake. You may notice that I've changed the board a little bit. I covered the board with tin foil, and there's a reason for that, but we'll go into it later. We're going to make an ocean out of this. It's going to look really cool. But between now and then, what we have to do is carve the cake. A lot of times this can be very stressful because you're afraid you're going to cut the wrong thing, and once you cut it, then it's cut. And blah, blah, blah. That's the beauty of this cake, is that it can't be good. It has to look bad. The whole idea is that it needs to have little, chunks taken out of it. It needs to be uneven and weird. And that's one of the reasons why this cake is so great for someone who doesn't have a whole lot of cake making experience. So I'm going to carve the cake here, but you don't want to sit here and watch me. It's going to take me 20 minutes to do this. You don't want to do that. So through Kiki Magic, you are going to get to watch me cut the cake like this.
One eternity later.
So we've carved the cake. You can see I've also added a couple little spots here. The idea is to throw off the shape of the cake so it doesn't look like a straight, tower. You want it to look a little different. You want it to look natural. So I just threw a couple little pieces on here just to throw the shape off. I've also made a little island here off to the side. Again, that's very much in the vein of having it off center. When you add a little extra something, a little island there, it throws off your brain and makes you think it's more spectacular than it was just because of that little extra added detail. So we have this. What we're going to do next is really the fun part. We're going to cover the entire thing with melted chocolate. Ooh! These are called candy melts or candy wafers. They have a lot of different names, but they're made specifically to melt at a low temperature, so they're easy to use for cakes and for making different goodies, for dipping candies in chocolate and things like that. So I'm going to melt down some of these, and we're just going to pour it right over the top of this. And then we're going to use some tools to make it craggly and natural looking and cover the whole thing with melted chocolate. This should be fun, all right? Here we go. Okay, you can't have too much chocolate, so I'd rather have too much and have some left over than not. So I'm just gonna put the whole thing in there. That is a lot of chocolate, but we're gonna want a lot of chocolate on this thing. You don't have to cook it at a very high temperature. It'll melt very quickly. So again, Kiki Magic. Okay, so we're all done melting the chocolate, and as it turns out, I looked away for just a little moment too long, and I burned the chocolate just a little bit on the bottom. Now, normally, that would mean I have to chuck it all out and start all over again. Because normally, when you're melting chocolate, you want it to be smooth and wonderful, perfect, with nothing in it. And in this case, it doesn't matter. It's a volcano cake. So as you can see, it's not as perfectly smooth as it should be. But again, that's okay. It was only slightly overcooked. I hesitate to even call it burned. Because if it was burned, it would have a burned taste and you wouldn't want to use it. But this is just enough so that we're not going to get super smooth. But again, that doesn't matter. So we're going to now take this over to the cake and start the yummy spreading process. Okay, so the chocolate's going on, but it's taking up too much chocolate because I can't directionally put the chocolate exactly where I want when I'm pouring it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pastry bag. That's what this is. This is the last pastry bag in the roll, which might look like this. I'm going to fill this up with the chocolate, and then I'm going to use this so I can put the chocolate right where I want it. So now I've got the bag going. As you can see, it's a little easier to put it right where I want it. And it doesn't have to be neat. In fact, neat is bad. It needs to look bad. It needs to be all messed up. And you'll see when we're all done later how this makes it look better. Okay, so how's my hair? Good? Okay, excellent. Okay, so now we've got it covered, the first coating of chocolate. And as you can see, it can be messy. Being messy is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, that helps to enhance it. And I'm actually going to go in and mess it up a little bit more. I'm going to put some marks and stuff on it to make it a little more volcano-y. All right? So here we go. So what I want to do now is put a little bit of red melted chocolate around the top, just to sort of simulate the lava even before it erupts. It also has a nice pop of color that makes the whole thing look really nice, especially in contrast to the other colors that will be on here. So what I have is just some of these same chocolate wafer things, but these are red colored. Same stuff, it's basically chocolate. I've melted it here, but as you can see, this is not the color of lava. This is the color of, I don't know, red taffy on a rainbow pony, okay? And what we want is lava. So, important note, melting chocolate, you cannot use regular food coloring. If you have the regular little food coloring things that you use at home, and this is professional red food coloring, you can't use this on chocolate because it will cause the chocolate to seize up and then it won't be any good to you. You have to use this. This is oil candy color. It's a special food coloring made specifically for melting chocolate, and it's made with a lot of oil in it so it'll mix with the chocolate. I'm going to make this a little darker red, and then I'm going to put a little bit around the top of this here and give it a kind of a drippy effect. So this is a little thick for me. I wanted to run a little bit more. So this is just Crisco, regular old Crisco. I'm taking some of that, just putting a little bit of that in there. And when that melts down, that will help to thin that out. Okay, so I have my melted red chocolate, and I'm just going to put a little bit of this on here. As you can see, I'm using a pastry bag. I use pastry bags for everything. Pastry bags are awesome. You can use them to put sour cream in on taco night. These things are great. But I use them mostly for cakes, and we're going to put this on here, and we're just doing this. And the idea is to let it drip. So let's hope it drips. something to make it look a little extra something. So what I have here is regular old buttercream. This is just powdered sugar, butter, a little bit of cream, and this one has cocoa powder in it to make it chocolatey. And the idea is for this to be a different color brown than what we have there. And we're just going to go in and put little bits all around just to break the color up a little bit, because you can see it's all one color. Volcanoes are not all one color. They have multiple colors in them, so we're going to simulate that with this. And this is just a matter of going in and doing this. Just little things, little dots, little specks. You can see it's very similar in color to the other one, but just enough so that it breaks it up a little bit. And as you can see, I'm just smearing little bits just to make it look random. There's one thing that's missing from the volcano: vegetation. There has to be, on a volcano, at least somewhere where there's a little bit of vegetation, things that have grown. So, green buttercream. And we're going to go in and just put little things here and there. And you don't want much. As you can see, it's all broken up. You don't want a big chunk. The idea is for it to look kind of like little trees from a distance. There's a couple of things you need to do to prepare for this. We're going to be using isomalt. Isomalt is, this bag looks like this, CK Products. You can buy it in different cake shops. You can get it online. It's called isomalt crystals. And basically this is like sugar. It's essentially sugar, but they've altered it slightly to make it melt a little easier, melt a little more consistent, and easier to work with. So we're going to melt this down into a syrup that will eventually harden and become like peanut brittle, only it'll be clear. And we're going to dye it blue so that it looks like the ocean. And we're going to pour it all around the volcano over the tin foil. The tin foil is going to give it texture and make it look like waves underneath the water. It's going to be very cool. But the setup, as you can see, you have to set something up like this. I'm lucky I have these little ramekins that I've over the years stolen from different restaurants that I've eaten at. And I have a lot of them because I steal them a lot. And I put them all down like this, and we can set the cake right on top of them. And you see I have tin foil down to protect the countertop, because we're going to have the isomalt run right off the edge of this board in order to have it go all the way to the edge. And so we don't want to have to worry about our countertop. Okay, so now we're going to pour the isomalt crystals into a pan. You're going to want it on low heat, nothing too high, because they're going to melt pretty fast. And keep in mind that you need a lot of this. That melts down to very little. I'm just going to put the whole bag in there. Because it's going to melt down to not that much liquid sugar. Put it in just like that. You can see this is what it looks like. It looks like basically like sugar. And very soon that will begin to melt. The ocean is ready. I've got it in here. As you can see, it doesn't make a whole lot. I poured the whole bag in there, and this is all that comes out of it. It's not a whole lot of liquid. But since it's supposed to be the ocean, oh, those are air bubbles in there. It's supposed to be the ocean, we need to add a little bit of blue. So I'm going to add just a little bit, a couple of drops. Look at that. It's ocean. Now this is really hot, so be careful. You don't want to get any of this on yourself. There we go, all mixed up, and now we're just going to pour. And hope we have enough to cover the whole thing. As I said from before, anybody can do this. It's very simple. It's spectacular, and there's still one element to it we haven't gone over, and that is the delicious raspberry lava sauce. That's right, that's what we have right here. Take a large bag of frozen raspberries. You put them in a pot on the stove on low to medium heat. You put a couple of tablespoons of sugar in there, and after a while it will break those raspberries down, and it will become just sauce with, or juice with seeds. You strain the seeds out, add about 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of water, and a couple of tablespoons of raspberry jello. You bring all that just to a boil, stir it up real good, and voila, you have raspberry sauce. You pour this raspberry sauce into the volcano. Now when you get to the party, or when you're ready to present the cake, you drop a couple of cubes of dry ice into the volcano. Don't do it with your bare hands, use tongs. And when you do that, it's going to cause the lava to bubble up and run over the side of the volcano, and smoke comes out of the top. It's spectacular. It's fantastic. It will blow your friends' minds. And when you tell them that you made the cake, they won't believe you. So you just show them this video and tell them that they should what? They should subscribe. I am being told by my producer that you should subscribe to this page. I hope that you have a great time making it. And if you make one of these, post some pictures or something. I don't know if you can do that here, but if you can, post some pictures or something. And because I would love to see your version of the volcano cake. So hey, for Sweet Stone Cakes, I am Jeff, or as some people call me, Uncle Jeff. I had a great time. Hope you had a great time. I'm supposed to have a catchphrase, so I've decided that this is it. This is my catchphrase.